Stuart, everyone.
Hey. I'm not going to use the projector. Is that all right? There's no show and tell. So, I'm Eric Stewart. I am the voice of Brock and James on Pokemon, and Seto Kaiba on Yu-Gi-Oh, and Meta Knight on Kirby, and Dr. Z on Dinosaur Kings, and let's see, Gallery on Slayers. I directed a lot of the shows too. I directed Yu-Gi-Oh! I directed Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. I'm Bastion on GX. I directed a very funny little show called Viva Pinata, which is one of my favorite shows. And let's see what else. I'm a singer-songwriter, play rock and roll. I'll be playing a show tomorrow on the main stage this time, not where my panel is, at 5. And then I'll also be participating in the anti-bullying concert tomorrow night as well. So that'll be kind of cool. So this is your chance to ask me some Q's and then I give you some A's. That make sense? Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
What do you think about Ash and Serena?
What do I think about Ash and Serena? See, I wouldn't even know that because isn't that current story arc? Yeah, I'm the original actor on the first 8 seasons, 10 years. Yeah.
How did you get the roles of Brock and James, did they come to you, or did you
So how did I get the roles of Brock and James? So I auditioned for Pokemon and didn't get any roles. I was brought in to audition for the show because I had worked on Slayers, and the same people knew that I did animation voiceover work, and so they said, hey, maybe Eric would be good for this show. So I auditioned for it, and I didn't get anything. So I went home, and then I got a call about a week later, and they said they had started recording with the actor that they picked for Brock, and they didn't like him. I was their second choice. Could I come in? Sure. Great. I don't mind being the second choice if I'm the guy that gets the job. So I came in, and I started doing Brock. Then after the 5th episode, my good friend Ted Lewis, who was playing James, is a stage actor, and he got a job to work in a play. And that's his life. That's his passion. So he said, see you later, Pokemon. I'm going to go act in theater. And so they brought me in to impersonate him in the beginning because they knew that I could sound like Ted. And so in the very beginning, I was just mimicking him. And when we get shows, we don't always get to see what's coming up. And the director doesn't always know what's coming down the line. So when we were in episode 7 or 8, the director said, no, you got to keep playing James he's a real bad guy. You got to keep playing him very legit, very straight. And I said, I think this character is funny. And they're like, no. These guys have to be they're the serious ones in the show. We all know now, right? I said, I think this is going to take a comedic twist. Well, the next episode, I was dressed like a girl. And then, of course, had to do my silly laugh, which that wasn't something that Ted had done. So the crazy James stuff, all the "ooh, yes," all that kind of stuff, is from once we realized, or once everyone else realized that these characters were supposed to be funny, that I sort of brought that to them. But like any show or any job as an actor, you audition, and the best piece of advice I can give you is after your audition, you forget about it. There's many times that I've done like a week's worth of stuff, and if I thought about all the potential work and how much money I could have made if I booked everything that week and then didn't get it, that could be devastating. So I've learned to forget even what I've auditioned for. So some people will say, well, what'd you do today? And I'm like, I read for some bank thing, and then there was a car something, because you just have to forget it. And then hopefully a week later or 2 weeks later, somebody calls you up and says, hey, you know that bank thing? They want you. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of remember what I did for that. Okay, cool. So I got that by chance, originally getting no roles, and then in the end playing 2 of the main characters. So there you go, good question.
Did you enjoy playing as Brock and James?
Yeah, it was great. You know, the way we dub when we're doing a show, there's 2 types of dubbing. There's called ADR, where we're replacing the dialogue. So it's originally done in Japanese, and then we're replacing the English dialogue, or replacing with English dialogue. Then there's prelay. Does anybody know what prelay is in terms of animation? So prelay is like how the Japanese made it, or how we would do like a Pixar film. where the actors record the dialogue first, and then you build the audio, and then send that to animators. So that's what I did with Viva Pinata. I directed each individual actor's lines individually, and then constructed them into an audio build, and sent that to animators. But when we're doing ADR, you're stuck with the lip flap. You're stuck with the emotion is right there on the screen. You can't really change anything. So we record one character at a time. So I get in the booth and I do all the Brock lines. And then I do all the James lines. So I wasn't jumping back and forth between the two characters, even though I can do that. And I've had to do that sometimes when I've done like radio shows where they'll have Eric Stewart and Brock and James. And the three of us have to have a conversation. And that's usually best really early in the morning before my coffee, so that my brain hasn't actually kicked in yet, because then I'm just sort of like on autopilot, then I can do that. But it was fun to be able to have conversations with myself in the show. And then I also played Butch, the other Team Rock. So there's an episode where you see James, Butch, and Rock all arguing together. So that was pretty crazy. Because they wanted me to play the other Team Rocket. And I said, I'm running out of voices. What do you want me to do? And they said, well, just come up with something. So that's why Butch sounds like Harvey Fierstein. He talks like this the whole time. He's very angry. And so with those three voices, that was like, okay, these are three guys talking to each other. They're all me. And then I have the fans that say, I had no idea you played Brock and James. That's the same actor played both those characters. And then I have the fans that lie and say, I knew all the time that the same actor played Brock and James. Because you didn't. Good question. He's got another question. Yeah.
Why did you leave playing Brock?
Oh, I didn't leave. What they did was the production company decided to, Pokemon USA decided to go to another production company after 10 years. And that company decided to recast everything. So we didn't leave.
Okay. Because we met Brock number 2 in West Palm a little while ago. So my kids had to tell me you're Brock 1.
Yes. I'm the original Brock. Yes. We did 8 seasons, 8 movies. So me and Veronica Taylor and Rachel Lillis, and then Maddie Blaustein, who passed away a couple years ago. The 4 of us, were all 6 main characters. Because Rachel played Misty and Jesse, and I played Brock and James, and then Veronica Taylor played Ash, and Maddie played Meow. So between those four actors, you had the whole cast.
Are you amazed that Pokemon is still as strong as it is today?
No. I'm amazed when it first started that it became a hit because so many shows we've worked on don't. But it has the formula to be successful. And I work a lot in production too. I was a senior voice director at 4Kids for 10 years, so I directed a lot of the shows that you guys know. And there's always somebody that wants to reinvent the wheel. They'll come in and they'll see the show, a new show idea, and they'll try to recreate their own and put their own stamp on it. And 9 times out of 10 it will fail because there is a formula to these shows, which is the characters have to be, there has to be someone in the cast that you connect to. Whether you would like the hero, the quirky friend, whatever, there's a moral issue that they're also talking about friendship and working together. It's a family-friendly show. And then there's the gameplay, and the cards are the bonus. If the show has merit and those things start to sell, then the show can be anything. Yeah. It can just be noise, because once you are hooked, remember, these cartoons are 20-minute commercials. That's what we get you on. So I always ask the question, when's the last time you watched Pokemon? And the people are like, well, and it's like, when's the last time you played Pokemon the game? And they're like, yeah, I played that yesterday. So that means they got you. When I started working on Yu-Gi-Oh, they brought me in to direct that. I said, oh, this will be very successful. And they said, wow, yeah, we say that about every show. I said, no. It's Pokemon 90210. Yeah. It's for the kids that are too old for Pokemon. It's the same format, characters that you can relate to, gameplay, without being too complicated, but still complicated. But yeah, it makes sense. It's when you try to change that stuff around. I worked on another show called Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, where some of the characters were really ones that you want to either be, hang out with, made you laugh. But the main character, and he's a great actor, he's a good friend of mine, but the main character was a slacker. He never wanted to do anything. He didn't want to go to school. He didn't want to play the game. He didn't want to do anything. And the ratings were not strong for that show. And I said, it's because our hero is a loser. Like, you know, like even if the guy's not good at doing it, it would be nice if he wanted to try.
Right.
And because there was no connection there was no success. So, and that's the difference between Yu-Gi-Oh! 1 and GX, is that the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Was all about the friendship and working together and trying to be your best. And that resonates with kids. Right? A good question.
Is that probably why they didn't do the final season of GX?
You know, it's always based on how merchandise sells. Viva Pinata, as I mentioned, is probably my favorite show I ever directed, because I really got to just let the actors be funny. And I constructed the build, so the timing of the jokes is all based on how I felt the dialogue should go. So it's really, really a funny, and they're 10-minute standalone episodes. I call it the Seinfeld of animation, because it's about nothing. You can watch them in any order. They're just funny. But the games, only the first game did well. The second video game didn't do so well, so the show got canceled. If the merchandise is selling, the show will stay on the air even if it's terrible. If the show is great, we've seen it with shows that we like that aren't even animation. We've seen shows go off the air because the advertisers aren't paying for the time. And that's a shame. Like, we're always like, I can't believe they canceled that. It was a great show. Yeah, the acting was great. The script writing was great. Yeah, but advertisers weren't getting behind it. With the cartoons, it's about licensing. It's about selling the rights to make that game, to put that movie out, to make those toys. And if nobody wants those, it doesn't matter how great the show is. So that's probably why they didn't finish the second season of GX. So, good question.
Question. How did it feel to redub Gallery after such a long gap?
So you saw the, was it Revolution? Is that what that was called?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it was crazy because that was the first recurring role I ever had. Gallery was my first full-time dub. And what was fun about doing that show in the beginning was the scripts were never written on time. We always had missing lines. There was a lot of ad-libbing in that show, which was fun. It was fun sessions. When I think we did like a full, maybe 4 story arcs, and they took it away to another company for a little while, and then the original people bought it again and said, we're going to redo it. And they approached some of the original cast members, and I think it was Crispin Freeman who said, I'll only do it if the whole cast is brought back. I don't want to work with just, random actors. So they reached out to all of us. I live in Nashville. I was down in Nashville, and they were like, would you come up for this? And I was like, sure. And I got so sick. I had like the flu, and they only had this certain window of time of like 3 days for me to come and do it. And I showed up, and I wish I had pictures of what was in the booth with me. I had 2 cups of tea, a thing of honey. I had like Vicks Vapor Rub, and tissue. I was in such a mess, and it would be like, "We got one more line for you to do." I was like, "Okay, I can do it. I can do it." And of course, Gallery is way up here, and he's, and I'm like, "I can do Gallery's voice. Give me 1 second. Let me drink some tea, clear my throat." So, what I remember of doing the sort of the revisited version, I think it was a lot of fun. But the amount of antihistamines and drugs I was on, I could have been dreaming. So I don't know. But yeah, it was fun to do that. I mean, great character. And I'm good friends with Lisa Ortiz, who plays Lena, who yells at me all the time in that show. Good. Who else has a question? Ryan? Yes, in the back.
Do you like to watch the product, or do you try to stay away from things you've been in? Like, you don't really have to get see it, or do you like to watch it once it's all done and put together with your person?
Well, as the ADR director, I watched every show that I worked on probably 25 to 30 times, start to finish, while I was working on it. So I can't tell you I've ever watched them fully on air. I've seen the movies. I've been to the movies, and it was fun to go to the big theaters and see, like Pokemon, the first movie. And I saw the first one and the second one and the Yu-Gi-Oh movie in the theaters. I don't have a problem watching my finished work like that. It's just that after seeing it so many times over and over and over again, I don't want to see it again. You know what I mean? There are some things where if someone asks me, "Hey, what have you done? What are your?" I will pull up an episode of something and say, "Oh, take a look at this," and then I'll be like, "Oh," and then I'll watch it. I did do something fun a couple of months ago. There's a small convention in Nashville that it's like a monthly get-together that's run by a friend of mine. And it maybe gets like 50 people together, and they all hang out in this one rock club, and they do a sort of like meet and greet, hangout, talk about anime, and sometimes screen a movie. So they asked me to do Mystery Science 3000 with Pokemon 2, the movie. And I hadn't seen that movie since it came out. So I sat in the front with a microphone and commented on the whole movie and made funny jokes as the whole thing was going on. That was fun to do. Because that was like, oh, I remember that scene, and things like that. So that's fun. But no, I can't say that I've watched most of the stuff. Good question. Anybody else have a question? No more questions. Yes.
Have you ever watched the original Japanese version of Pokemon?
I've watched all of the originals. Any show I've worked on, I've watched the original Japanese. Because also when I'm casting for the shows, I have to reference sometimes the sound of the voices. Certain clients want you to mimic what they did. Certain clients don't. So with a show like Pokemon and a show like Yu-Gi-Oh, they're very protective of it needs to be like this. So we would listen and watch the original show to get the mood. Of course, there's not subtitles, and I don't speak Japanese, but you can kind of follow what's going on. But I've watched them, and I've watched some subs. There's some movies that, some anime things that I actually, even as a dubbing actor, I prefer to watch in the original language and then see the sub. That's like certain films, like I watched the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I watched the original series, the original version of that, and read the subtitles because I wanted to hear those actors with their inflection. And I just thought that that's really the way you watch a movie like that. So some of the Japanese shows I've watched, but I don't always understand it. So that's a good question. Anybody else have a question? Yeah.
How was it being kaiba? It wasn't necessarily like bad guy, but you were kind of like his main like rival.
That's a good question. That's a good question because that's one of my favorite characters for that very reason. So when I was brought in to work on Yu-Gi-Oh, I was hired as a voice director. I had already been working on all the other shows, and I was working freelance. So I would direct myself on Pokemon and direct other actors on Pokemon at another studio for kids, right? The company that made the show. So then they decided to bring everything in-house and make their own production company and stop paying other studios to do the work. They brought it all in-house. Big facility. 5 Pro Tools audio rooms, 4 Avid suites, full city block, like, depth-wise of a one floor of production. Hired 50 people to, start doing stuff, graphics department, all sorts of stuff. And so they went, who do we know that's a voice director that we can hire for one of our new shows? So they called me, and I said, sure, I'd love to do it. I came in, and that's when they showed me the show, and I said, I think this is going to be successful. They had cast everyone in the show by the time they hired me, except for Kaiba. And if you're familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh at all, the very first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh, which is episode 3 that we started with, is all about Kaiba, right? It's not like we had a couple episodes and then we could introduce him. We had to introduce him soon. And we were already running teasers, promos, coming soon to the WB, Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm like, not yet. Not until we cast Kaiba. So, because I was hired as the director, I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to volunteer to play that role. Even though once my producer was telling me what he was looking for, voice-wise, attitude-wise, I knew that it was something that I could do. But I didn't want to double dip. I didn't need to be the director, and then also be one of the main stars on the show. That would be kind of a little bit not cool. The engineer that was working with me and casting and doing all of the stuff with me knew what I could do because we had worked together for years. The producer was new to the company. He didn't know me as a voice actor. He only knew me as his new director. So we went through casting. We brought in every male voice actor that you guys know from all those shows. All great guys. One by one by one by one. And my producer would say, no, I'm not hearing it. I don't hear it yet. I don't hear it yet. And it got to like the 11th hour where we needed to get the show out. This is a network national show. Unlike a lot of the anime that you guys love, that goes straight to DVD or sometimes goes to cable in some random time slot. When you're working on Saturday morning cartoons, you have to deliver 2 episodes a week. So when you start running promos for these things, you better have a show. You can't say, well, we'll hold off on it. Maybe give us another month until we cast this character. So in the 11th hour, I turned to my producer and I said, look, I think I know what you want. Let me read for Kaiba. I'll dub half the show. If you don't like it, we'll keep casting. If you do like it, we'll be halfway done, and then I'll finish the rest of the show and we'll get it on the air. And he goes, fine, I don't even know what I'm looking for anymore. Just do it, and I'll see what I think. So I dub it. He comes in 2 days later. I'm with the same engineer. We play it for him. He goes, exactly. This is what I've been waiting for. That's right. This is his attitude. That's the right voice. This is great. He walks out. My buddy Joe, who's the engineer, turns to me and goes, you couldn't have done this like a month ago? Then we might have lunch outside of the building, or we might be able to have a break before this airs, because we were really up against the wall on this. But the reason I think that he liked what I was doing is what you mentioned in your question. Kaiba is the Apollo Creed to Rocky. You cannot be the champ if there's not someone that pushes you to be the best. What we learn in the Egyptian story arc is that Kaiba is actually the pharaoh's lieutenant, his sparring partner. So how do you take that dynamic that's ancient Egypt and bring it into modern-day high school? It's not like I could be that classmate who happened to be his sparring partner. What is that, right? So the way to play him is the rival. He's not his enemy. He's his rival. So I had to make sure that the sarcastic things came across as witty and would push him. But I'm not evil. I'm not a bad guy. I talk about him as if he's me. He's got family values. Obviously, Mokuba means more than anything to him. Sometimes you think he might choose winning over his brother, but I think if no pun intended, if the cards were down, he would still choose his brother over the game. And when there's a common enemy, who does he befriend? Yugi. So he's not his enemy, right? So approaching that character, walking that fine line between being a rival but not being a villain was hard. It's a challenge all the time. So, and that's why he's one of my favorites. Because every time I look at what he has to say, I think, okay, am I going to cross the line? Making fun of Joey and things like that. Those guys are all ancillary guys. Those guys I can poke fun at. But Yugi, I have to make sure he rises to the occasion to beat me as much as he can, right? Otherwise, he'd be sitting at home playing video games. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. No, I didn't work on Black Panther. Does Eric Bale work on Black Panther? I know that Rita does. I don't know. Sorry. Anybody else have a question? You want another question? Have I played the games? I hate to burst your bubble, but I have not played the Pokemon games, nor have I played Yu-Gi-Oh! But I could beat you at both. Because I'm Kaiba. And I'm Squirtle. There you go. I had to be familiar with the card game, especially when you're directing the show, because there'd be continuity problems. The way these shows are made, the schedule is so tight to get it out the door that, does anybody have an idea? This is usually a panel I do on Sunday, which is the voice acting and directing side of it. Does anybody have an idea how long it takes to record just the voices in a 20-minute show? How many hours of a week it takes to record one 20-minute episode? Anywhere from 15 to 18 hours to do one episode. I had to direct 2 episodes a week. Every director directed 2 episodes a week of their show. Okay? Now you could double up, because if you had like episode 1 and 2, and kaiba had 10 lines in this one and 20 in this one, you'd book him and I'd do both episodes in one session. So, if it's that much time to record, anybody have an idea how much time it takes to write, to lip flap, write an adaptation of a 20-minute show, to watch frame by frame, count syllables, and write the show in English? It takes a little over, it's like 2 weeks. So with that production schedule, do you think the same writer could write episode 1 and 2? So what happens when one guy writes 1, one girl writes 2? Continuity problem. Because they're coming in at the same time, and this writer has no idea what this person's going to do, and this writer has no idea what this person did. And I'm not talking about the difference between character names and things like that. I'm talking about the voice of the characters, their dynamic, how they speak to each other. This writer might think that Kaiba and Yugi need to be really, really angry at each other all the time, be really obnoxious. And this writer knows, no, that's not how it's going to go. This writer hasn't seen that script yet. So it's up to the producer to be the filter. So we sometimes had up to 5, 6 writers for one show. So everybody's sending in a different script. So as a director, while I was in the session, I would have to know enough to say, Squirtle's a water type. That's the wrong. That's not the kind of attack. It's not a fire attack. It's not doing that. I would have to know things like that enough to catch the mistakes. But then once we got into the heavy-duty Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay, we had a Japanese-American staff member who translated every script for us, and also was our gameplay master. So his name was Sam, and we go get him on the phone. Sam, yeah, Eric again, yeah. So what exactly goes on here? How does this thing work? Oh no, that's wrong. Thanks, that's what I thought. So he was the guy that we would double check with. Without Sam, if Sam was ever sick, we couldn't work. We're like, I'm not touching that script until Sam comes in. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, no, I don't play that. I'm a gamer, but not those kinds of games. Much different genre of games. Though they look fun.
Fake fan.
What?
They're fake.
What are they? They're fake? Anybody else got a question?
No, but you can go to the tournament, and if you aren't in concert tomorrow at 5, there's going to be a Pokemon tournament.
Yes, I do appear at the Yu-Gi-Oh! National tournament.
Oh, you do?
If you guys ever go to those, which are a lot of fun, I usually I'll MC them, or we'll do a live duel. If you guys go on YouTube, you can see me duel Pegasus. You can see me duel Joey and Tristan at the same time. So it was like, you can't fight 2 guys at the same time. I'm like, it's Joey and Tristan. Do they even have any cards? Like, Red Eyes, White Dragon, and then, does Tristan even have a card? I don't even know. Well, I won't ruin it for you, but I annihilate it. All right, we got a couple more minutes. Anybody else got some more questions? Yeah.
What's your opinion on the Yu-Gi-Oh race? You haven't seen it before?
I knew someone was going to ask me about that. So I like parody. Satire is great. I think it's a great thing. What you have to be careful with is if you make a profit on copyrighted material. Selling T-shirts and any material that has artwork that you don't own, even in parody, then you cross the line from doing something that's just satire to making a profit. Think if Saturday Night Live sold the jokes, like they're doing a fake McDonald's spot, things like that. If they sold the T-shirts that went along with that, McDonald's would sue them. What they're doing is they're making a joke in the show. They're selling airtime, but they're not selling merchandise. And I know, Little Grebo, he's done conventions with me. He has been sued by Konami because he's done that. So I don't have a problem with satire. Make fun of it. That's great. It just makes more fans aware of the show. But if you're going to do stuff like that, you got to know the law. So that's the only thing that I would warn you on. And if you're that talented and you have that much time on your hands, don't make an original show. Like, I know how long it takes to dub a show. Why would I work on something that I would not be able to profit from? Right? And one of the things that I also like to say to the convention people is we're all fans of the same genre, right? I'm part of geek culture. I told you I'm a big gamer. You are hanging out with people that like the same stuff you like. So in this room, there's probably somebody that draws. There's probably somebody that writes. And there's probably somebody that plays around with audio, mixing and editing, and somebody that might do music composing. This is where you talk to other people and say, I've got a great idea. I've written this small script here. It's a 5-minute pilot for a new cartoon. I see that you're an artist. Do you think you would be interested in drawing the characters? And hey, you do animation? That'd be really cool. Maybe you can animate something for me. Because honestly, there are companies that scan YouTube. They scan it, looking for creative ideas. I have friends that have done webisodes that have been picked up for a series on cable networks because they've done great jobs. The difference between when I first started working in the industry and how expensive the equipment was to now is ridiculous. So if you have that skill to sit in your parents' basement and redub Yu-Gi-Oh, then go and create your own show. Right? You have the networking. Every convention you go to, I'm telling you right now, if you turn to the person next to you, it's probably somebody that does something that you like or can be helpful to your new production company. And if we wait until somebody comes calling or knocking on our door, it's never going to happen. You create the stuff and put it out there as, here it is, and you start getting followers. People go, because the way the industry works is they wait for the next guy to say that that's a great idea, and then they go after it. Oh, well, I don't know if you've ever, in the music industry, it's like this. You're doing a showcase, right, to be seen by record labels. You invite them all. Why? So that guy sees that guy, and that girl sees that girl, and all the people from different companies, because they go, well, if they're here, this guy might be really good. We might not want to miss this opportunity. So you create your own product, you put it out there, and it's getting a buzz. People might come to you to see what's going on. So that's my theory on if you've got the skills, do your own thing. Anybody else got a question? Yeah. How to become an artist that draws the shows? Well, I know a lot of the people I work with are great graphic artists. All of them, most of them went to school for art and for graphics to learn how to use the tools of the trade. But most of them also would intern, because interning is a big thing in this industry, where you volunteer your time so you can shadow somebody who does what you want to do. It's the difference between saying, I need a job, which people will say we're not hiring, and, hey, I really am interested in this. I have a couple of hours a week. Can I sit next to you? I'll help you clean up the shop and put away your stuff at the end of the day, take the trash out, whatever, just in return to watch what you do. The analogy I like to use is you want to be a great carpenter. You find the great carpenter in town and you say, hey, I'll sweep up the shop, put your tools away, do everything for business working to help you out in return to watch you do what you do. Because what ends up happening in all of these companies, and I got a job in a recording studio like that, is that the work becomes so much that if you've been there, they might say, hey, do you think you could color this in? We watched you do some of the stuff you're doing. It'd be great. Could you help us out with this? Or, can you record this voiceover for us? Because we don't have time to cast for it. We know that you do voiceovers, and this would be great because you got your foot in the door as an intern. And that's how it works. So I would look for companies that have an art department, even an advertising agency that has a graphic art department, and see if you can intern there to learn and watch what they do. Question? All right. Anybody else got a question? No. Yes. But over that hat, I have a hat endorsement from a company called Hats in the Belfry. So they give me hats, I wear their hats. Will you do that? Do you have a hat endorsement? You need to get one. How many hats do you have? I have 20. How many do you have? 5. So you need 15 more. Gotta go get yourself a hat endorsement. I can hook you up with some good hats. Would you wear a pork pie like mine? You don't know? It doesn't have ears, right? All right. They might have hats with ears. Probably not. We'll have to check out their website. All right, we got a couple more minutes. Anybody else got some speed round questions? Yeah.
What's your favorite voice to do?
That's like picking your favorite child, which my parents can do because I'm an only child. They still haven't picked me yet. I don't have a favorite. There's ones that are fun to do. I mean, James is fun to do. I like the fact that he is bad at disguises. And that everybody who's watching the show knows that it's Team Rocket, and yet everyone in the show has no idea, even though they're a little suspicious. That's a fun voice to do. Meta Knight is a fun voice to do because I get to do Antonio Banderas. I like playing Pecky Pudgeon because throughout all of my years of being a voice actor in all these cartoons, and I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, okay? Every show that we ever did that had a New York character with a New York accent, they never picked me. They picked. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people that do great dialects from places that they're not from. But the guys they picked were not great. And I would say, that's the guy that you gave the New York role to? Like, that's terrible. So, when I got Viva Pinata to direct, and I was casting the show, there's a very small character, because I didn't want to cast myself as a star, but I had to do this. There's a newspaper pigeon, like old school newspaper, and his name is Pecky Pudgeon. And so if you get to watch Viva Pinata, look for, there's some special Pecky Pudgeon episode. But the thing I wanted to do is when I wanted to do my Joe Pesci, I wanted to do the whole thing like this. So that's how he talks, the whole thing. You know, like, how you going, yeah, good, so the whole thing is very good, and I'm talking like this all the time. And so I was like, I want to do Pesci in a show. So I got to do that, you know what I'm saying? I was like, you think I'm funny? How do you think I'm funny? Like, ha-ha funny? Like, you stare me in the eye funny? Because those are all the guys that I grew up with. They spoke like that. Yeah, so that's one of my favorite voices that I got. Because I thought it was kind of, and there's no lip flap. So I got to read it any way I wanted, and then that's how they animated it. So it's pretty funny. There's one episode I did as Pecky that's film noir. It's done all in black and white with crazy angles. And it's like a detective who's like, so I was sitting in my office, see, and she came in here and she had a question. There was a mystery. And I'm doing this whole thing, narrating it and acting it out. And it's like, boom, 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 and all this crazy lighting and stuff like that. That's the one you have to find. That's a great one. Yeah. Can I voice James from Team Rocket? Of course I can. And to go back to Brock, because nothing against Bill, but he doesn't do the Casey Kasem that I do. Casey Kasem was my hero when I was in 5th grade. My first anime experience was Battle of the Planets. If you've never seen G-Force, Gatchaman is what it's called in Japanese, go find that show. They are high school kids who all one rides a motorcycle, one drives a sports car, whatever their normal life is. But when they turn into their superheroes, they turn into birds. They say transmute, and they fly this fiery phoenix. It's an awesome, awesome cartoon. It's called. The original is called Battle of the Planets, and then they did a bad redub that was called G-Force. So look for Battle of the Planets. But Casey Kasem played the main character, Mark. Now, when I was in 5th grade, I could do Casey Kasem because my voice was deeper in 5th grade than it is now. And so basically, I was doing my Casey Kasem, American Top 40. This song goes out to a little dog named Fruit, right? And so he played Mark from G-Force, and he would say transmute. And so basically, Brock is Casey Kasem. I'm doing Shaggy without the goblin scoops, without the voice crack. So when the time came to audition for Pokemon, I was like, I'm doing Casey Kasem. That's my guy. That's what I'm doing. And so that's what Brock is, what Casey Kasem. That's another one that I'm proud of because that's an ode to one of my childhood, obviously idols. All right, got a couple more minutes. Yeah. Never wanted to be a voice actor. Really, I didn't. I've been a musician, a singer-songwriter, much longer than I've ever been an actor. I got an offer to work in a recording studio, and I thought that that studio was going to be producing music. And I was really excited because as a musician, I was like, this is going to be great. And it turned out that they produced radio and TV commercials. So I actually started as the production assistant, which if you know what a production assistant is in a recording studio, I took the garbage out and I made coffee. I made copies of scripts. And gradually, I went from production assistant to assistant casting director. Then I was a casting director. Then I produced for clients. They would come to the studio, and I would direct the talent for them and produce their commercials. And then my boss retired, and I ran that studio for 10 years. So I was on the production side for a long, long time. In between, I would jump into the booth and read something if I had to. Being a singer is very helpful to being a voice actor. Pitch and inflection, it's the same thing. When you stress a different word, you're changing your pitch. Having a good ear for that is very helpful. But it became a very good source of income so that I had the freedom to play music. Where, because voice acting, you never see me. As an actor, you'd see me. So it's very hard to take me seriously as a rock guy singing heartfelt rock and roll ballads if I'm also the tiny little man. Right? Now, some of those people make a lot of money, like, Flo from Progressive. I would love to have her bank account. But if you saw Flo from Progressive fronting a rock band, would you go, that's Flo from Progressive? So voice acting was a perfect way to earn money, and also I could do it from anywhere there's a microphone, or anywhere now where there's a quiet room, because I audition in my hotel room into my iPhone. As long as I can set a microphone up in somewhere, I can record a voiceover. I don't have to find a studio. So no, I didn't. That wasn't my goal. I love voice acting part is a lot of fun, but I also think I prefer the directing side because then I can see what it's like to bake the cake and see what the final product is like. Because I especially when you're doing comedy is very relative, and I know a lot of people who are not funny, who are in charge of comedic shows, and so it kills me sometimes when you're doing something as an actor and that director doesn't get the humor. Because it is all relative. Jokes that are funny in one country are not funny in another country. Jokes that are like Canadians and Americans have very different sense of humor. I have a very dear friend who's one of my favorite people in the voiceover world, who's also a great director. He and I have, sometimes we have the same sense of humor. But it's a cultural thing. It's not like he's not funny and we're both funny, but from different places. So that's sometimes more fun to be the director so that I can be in charge of making sure funny, not funny. Right? All right, let's got one more question for me before I go back to my table for autographs and madness. Anybody got a really good wrap-up question? Yeah, you have a question. You got a question? Yeah, you. Sure. No, you have a question? Want to ask me something?
Any questions, Mike?
Oh, I don't know.
Yes. Awesome cosplay, by the way. Way to represent.
We have the whole family.
I know. I saw you in the other room. I know.
It's not really a question, more so a request.
Huh?
I want to know the argument between James and Rocket. What would they argue about? How would that play
I
out?
think it would go something like this. I've made my jelly donuts and they're scrumptious. They're not jelly donuts. They're rice bowls. Did I say bowls? I think that would be the argument, right?
Over food, that's right.
Yes. All right, guys. So I'm doing some more autographs this afternoon, and then tomorrow I'll be at my table, and then I got a concert at 5. So come rock the rock, okay?
No dying.
I'm going to do my Jerry Lewis, ball, my Chevy Chase. Awesome cosplay. Did you guys plan this out? Did you meet here and become family?
I think they're like a